University. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and welcome to the 105th Indian Economic Association Conference. My name is Dr. Harold Andrew Patrick, the Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies, CMS Business School, Jain deemed to be University. Creativity is a spark. It can be excruciating when we are rubbing two rocks together and getting nothing. And it can be intensely satisfying when the flame catches and a new idea sweeps around the world. It gives me immense pleasure to invite an extended of the Jain deemed to be University, our esteemed dignitaries on the dais, our esteemed members of the Indian Economic Association, resource persons, faculty and students of the Jain University, and most importantly, the delegates to the 105th Annual Conference organized by the Indian Economic Association and proudly hosted by the Faculty of Management Studies, CMS Business School, Jain deemed to be University. We are overwhelmed to witness the enthusiastic participation of delegates and resource persons from almost every state and union territory of this country. Prayer, in its simplest form, is a request for the presence of God in a ceremony or an event. Prayer is the most powerful form of energy one can experience by invoking God's presence to this inauguration ceremony. For Almighty's blessings, may I now call upon Ms. Mania, first MBA student, to recite the prayer. I request all of you to please rise and kindly refrain from applauding or clapping at the end. Lighting of the lamp is a significant part of our Indian culture. I request all our esteemed dignitaries on the dais to please come and light the lamp. I request one delegate from the conference to also please join them. Kindly rise for the state anthem. Thank you very much. On the occasion of the 105th Annual Conference, I express my heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to every member of the audience for having spared your valuable time to attend the inauguration ceremony of the conference and the 3 days conference. This year, the 105th Annual Conference is being hosted Rankings 2022. Jain is accredited by NAAC with the highest grade A++, 2018 revised accreditation with the score of 3.71 out of 4 and has been provided graded autonomy from the Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. Jain is ranked 79 among the top universities in India in the NRF 2022 rankings. Jain's All India rank is 91 to 95 in the QS 2020 World Ranking University rankings. Jain has also ranked between 351 to 400 World University rankings. Under the participating universities in BRICS in 2019, Jain offers programs leading to Doctor of Philosophy, postgraduate degrees, and undergraduate degrees in multiple disciplines. The university has also enrolled scholars for postdoctoral studies in emerging areas. Jain has emerged as the preferred choice for students from all over India through its emphasis on academic excellence, entrepreneurship development, sports, extension activities, value-added add-on programs and courses, research and development in frontier areas, industrial linkages, collaborations, and unique specializations. The university has close to about 21,000 students and faculty, besides a significant strength in the online education and open and distance learning segments. We have more than foreign students from 43 countries on the university campuses. Some of the milestones of the Jain deemed to be university are 9 students have represented India in the Olympic Games, 92 ventures incubated till date through the Jain Raj Roychand Center for Entrepreneurship and the DST-funded Jain Incubator, research projects funded by agencies such as the DST, the DRDO, the ICSSR, etc. Close to about 5,063 plus publications. One-to-one study, CMS Business School, Jain deemed to be university, was part of the department established in 2009 as part of the Jain deemed to be university, is among the top 100 business schools according to the 22 NRF ranking in the business schools, and according to the Government of India. In 2022, the business school was accredited by the National Board of Accreditation, the NBA. The business school is also an esteemed member institution of the Business Graduate Association and International Membership and Quality Assurance Body. BGA is part of the same organization as the Association of MBA, the AMBA, the world's impartial authority on postgraduate management education. The business school has been ranked 10 in the Outlook India's top private business school institution for 22 in the South Zone, and also been awarded an A-star grade in Karnataka by CRISIL. The business school is an integral part of the Jain deemed to be university with an international perspective. It's a place where ideas are born, theories are debated, and businesses are incubated. Much more than a source of knowledge, it's a catalyst that makes a difference to the career and the personal progress of its students. The business school offers a 2-year, 4-semester MBA program with 13 single and 13 dual specializations in niche areas and sectors. It has developed and executed a unique delivery application, practitioner and research model that inculcates strong entrepreneurial and entrepreneurial orientation. The highly accomplished faculty of the institution, as well as the rigorous contemporary curriculum, ensures that the students are mentored to achieve success and demonstrate relevant industry skills and become solopreneurs. It's an honor and privilege to have with us Professor Bibang Deb Roy, Chairman, Economic Advisor, Counsel to the Prime Minister of India, who was joined us live from Columbia State University, USA. Sir, on behalf of everybody gathered here, we welcome you, sir. So let me introduce Dr. Bibang Deb Roy, the Chairman, Economic Advisor, Counsel to the Prime Minister. He's an economist and was educated in the Ramakrishna Mission School, Narendrapur, Presidency College, Kolkata, Delhi School of Economics, and Trinity College, Cambridge. He is Chairman, Economic Advisor, Counsel to the Prime Minister, Government of India. He has worked in Presidency College, Kolkata, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, Delhi, as the Director of a Ministry of Finance, UNDP project on legal reforms, Department of Economic Affairs, National Council of Applied Economic Research, the Rajiv Gandhi Institute for Contemporary Studies, the Chamber of Commerce of Industry and Center for Policy Research. He was also a member of the Niti Aayog up to 5th June 2019. He's authored, edited several books, papers, and popular articles, and has also been a consulting, contributing editor with several newspapers. Sir, it's an honor to welcome, and we would hand over to deliver the conference inaugural talk.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be invited to deliver the inaugural address for this particular session, this particular conference of the Indian Economic Association. I am virtually present, not from Columbia State University, but from Delhi. Strange though it may seem, this is the second occasion ever of my participating in a conference of the Indian Economic Association. The first time, several years ago, was in Surat in 1979. Several years have passed since 1979, something like 43 years. In those 43 years, the world has changed. In those 43 years, India has changed. 78, 79 was China began its process of economic reforms. 78, 79 was a time when very few in India had thought that economic reforms in India were ever going to happen. There is a tendency of our fraternity and sorority to go along with whatever is the prevalent view. Despite notable exceptions like Jagadish Bhagwati, Padma Desai, Professor Panchmukhi, who I understand is going to be part of this conference, 7 years ago, Dr. Shenoy, despite those exceptions, by and large the tendency of our fraternity and sorority is to go along with the prevalent point of view. As we look back, more often than not, the import substituting industrialization, the pre-reform policies, they are blamed for the political classes. The political classes tend to be blamed for those policies. We often tend to ignore the fact that that was driven by economic advice. So economists were just as culpable for recommending the continuation of policies of state intervention when their benefits were no longer commensurate with the costs. Why did the reforms of 1991 happen? Barring the exceptions that I mentioned, they primarily happened because of assorted government committee reports. Since I'm talking about 78, 79, one of the earliest was Dadley. After that, there were several. Alexander Committee, Abid Hussain Committee, so on a list is endless. The reason I'm making this point is I want to raise some questions. They are meant to be rhetorical questions. They are questions that all of us as economists, working even outside the government, should seek to answer. And especially if those economists are working outside the government, those insights, those inputs are vital for those who work within the government. Within the government has its own system of answering these rhetorical questions. But it's also extremely important that people outside the system, economists, seek to answer these questions. So what are these questions? We are in 2022. We are in the midst of a considerable amount of uncertainty. First, there was uncertainty caused by COVID. Then there was uncertainty centered around geopolitical tensions, Russia, Ukraine, so on and so forth. We now have an additional degree of uncertainty because of what is happening with COVID in China. Splice this with the fact that the world economic order seems to be more uncertain than ever before. The WTO is in a bit of a limbo. We do not know where the economies of Europe and even the United States are headed. And in the midst of all this, India cannot possibly hope to be insulated from what is happening across the globe in terms of this uncertainty. In the midst of all of this, India is naturally exposed to consequences in terms of the real world, consequences in terms of volatility, whether it is in the capital markets, whether it is in the foreign exchange market, whether it is in terms of being able to manage inflation and interest rates. In the midst of this, we are, after celebrating the 75th year of independence, we are embarked on what has come to be called as Amrit Kaal, which sets out the template for India for the next 25 years, till 2047. What is India going to look like in the year 2047? There are different ways of answering those questions. One can sit down with a calculator, make assumptions about inflation, make assumptions about exchange rate behavior of the rupee vis-a-vis the dollar. For India, the aggregate rate of growth for India is, after all, largely a summation of what happens at the level of the states. Is levels of development. How much of research work has been done on the sources of growth within the states? It's a bit like conceiving of production functions, aggregate production functions for the country as a whole, aggregate production functions for individual states. That kind of estimation, despite all the pitfalls of doing such an exercise, should not be done by the likes of Goldman Sachs alone. It should also be done by researchers, by those who are economists, who are in the economics profession, working in universities and colleges. As economists, we talk about reforms. We talk about markets. But markets are not vegetable mandis. Those are conceptual structures, and all markets function in a certain historical social context. They function on the basis of a certain legal construct, which in the Indian case happens to be the Constitution of India. The classical economists were much more aware of the institutional moorings of markets, economies, and growth. How much of research is there done on the institutional side of what needs to be done for India to transform itself in the year 2047. How many of us as economists are interested in the constitutional edifice? How many of us are interested in the other organs of state beyond the executive, such as the judiciary and the legislature? How many of us are interested in how these organs of state function at the level of the states? In a production function sense, occurs on the basis of the factor inputs. Simply stated, this means land, labor, cattle, and the rest is productivity. How many of us do actual research on what it takes to make land markets more efficient? When I say land markets more efficient, I am not talking only about ownership of rights. And it is possible to unbundle some of those rights without necessarily only talking about ownership reforms. Ditto for labor markets. Ditto for capital markets. That is the kind of research, that is the kind of empirical research which I think needs to be done. Purely in terms of national income identities, there are four sources of wealth: consumption, investment, government expenditure, and net exports. Working within the government, one wishes to know what is the role of exchange rates in driving exports. What is the elasticity? What is the elasticity for exports of goods? What is the elasticity for exports of services? Yes, there will be rotational paper, but how much of research focuses on trade? There was a period of time when a lot of people were working on trade, particularly from the divorcee view, in a period when the WTO was a bit of a buzzword. Today, where is that research? Or how significant is that research? I repeat, there will always be the odd paper, but how significant is that research? Where is the research that tells me what are the effective rates of protection today? What is the research that tells me what have been the costs and benefits of the various regional trade agreements that India has signed? Where is the research that tells me what are likely to be the costs and benefits of any future trade agreements that India might want to sign? You might tend to think that I am pointing a finger of accusation. That's not my intention at all. Answers to questions like these are always sought to be answered from within the government system. But the broader point I am making is for relevance as researchers outside the government system, one needs to seek to answer questions like these, questions that have policy relevance. It is indeed necessary to publish papers which are abstract and esoteric in refereed journals. While that is necessary, it is not sufficient. It is also necessary to do policy related research. I mentioned labor earlier. All of us knew that the employment velocity of growth today is about half of what it used to be 20 years ago. Why exactly has this happened? Why has the employment velocity of growth declined significantly? Why is it the case that the work participation rate, the participation in the labor force, has been declining? Not only for males, but also for females. I understand that in answering questions like these, there are often problems connected with the paucity of data. What are the gaps in the Indian statistical system? What are the problems with the system of national income accounting? What are the sources of data across a whole variety of indicators? We have always been interested in the MDGs and the SDGs. The social sector has become even more important as a result of COVID and the consequences of COVID. What has been the impact of COVID? Not only in terms of mortality, but in terms of mobility, in terms of learning outcomes. Any such research would be of great interest to the government. And when I say government, I don't mean only the union government, I mean state governments too. What should one do about health? It is not simply a question of increasing public expenditure. What are the various models available to improve health outcomes? What are the various things that need to be done not only on the environment but on other measures to ensure that India moves closer to the SDG goals, targets and indicators by 2030? We have a national education policy for the year 2030. Reforms are about competition. Competition means entry, it also means exit. The entry part of it is obvious for something like the national education policy. But obviously all the institutions of higher education will have to adjust to comply with what needs to be done by 2030. Is there sufficient research on how they need to adjust and adapt? In the process, some of them will inevitably have to close down. As I said, it is competition, and competition involves both entry and exit. Where is the research that tells me about the exit part of it? One often talks about population. The rate of population growth, the annual rate of population growth in India is now about 1.1%. It is fast slowing down. India will soon be not a young country with a development. It will be an aging country beyond the year 2035 with an aging population. With high dependency ratios, you can only see that in a state like Kerala. How does one manage social security provisions in a country like India, which gets old before it gets rich? By the year 2047, our per capita income, depending on the extrapolation, will be about $10,000 US. That makes the issue of social security an extremely difficult one to handle. What are the are various kinds of models that are possible to ensure that social security, however defined, is financially viable. What is the definition of social security? I said that the rate of population growth is slowing down. The absolute number of children in under 15 age groups has already declined. These are projections because we don't have census figures. It's not that the share has declined, the absolute number has declined. There was a time when we planned for a larger number of children. We built schools throughout the country. Some of these schools are now going to become redundant. There has to be rationalization. They need to be closed down. We need to think about what should be done with the public assets that have been created. Is there sufficient research on this? Is there sufficient research on the efficiency of government expenditure, by which I do not mean the union government? We are perpetually obsessed with the union government. Is there sufficient research on the efficiency of expenditure at the level of the state governments? India has often been described an excessively centralized country. Decentralization does not mean only fiscal devolution. It does not mean only devolution from the union government to the level of the states. It also means devolution within the state down to local bodies. What kind of models of organization would we think of? Because organization is going to be correlated with economic development. It is correlated with economic development. India will be a much more organized economy by the year 2047. What are the possible kinds of organization? How do we manage the finances of the Punjabi large institutions and the urban local bodies? Is the definition of urban as defined in the census at all relevant? At random, I've shot off a list of questions. And please do not misunderstand my intention at reading of these questions. My intention at reading of these questions was only to illustrate that these are the kinds of policy questions governments within union government, at state governments, and perhaps even at the level of local government seek answers to. And if a profession, I'm not speaking as a member, as the chairman of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, as a profession, as an economist, we need to become relevant. We need to become relevant in the formulation of policy. And the way to become relevant in the formulation of policy is to do the policy research. Not only on the issues that I mentioned, but on several other issues that I have not mentioned. One of the distinguishing features of economists 30 years ago, 35 years ago, and I will mention Professor again, who is part of the event today. One of the distinguishing features of the economics profession perhaps 30 years ago was that economists may have done the theory, but they were also interested in the policy-related questions. And that's the reason I want to underline this, because I get the sense, rightly or wrongly, that as a profession, we are not that interested in answering such questions anymore. Perhaps it has got to do a little bit with the incentive structure. Perhaps it's got a little bit to do with the vertical mobility in the professions we choose, of publishing, in internationally refereed journals, publications and citations, which warps the incentive structure away from engaging with such applied questions. Thank you very much for having invited me. I hope I've given you some points to think about.
Thank you very much, sir, for those pertinent questions. Hoping that the 3 days debate and conference will answer or come around them to do some research. I request our Honorable Chancellor to welcome Professor Ramesh Chand, Conference President, Niti Aayog, Government of India, with a bouquet and a memento. I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to welcome Professor V.K. Malhotra, Association President, Chairman, Food Commission, Government of India, with a bouquet and a memento. I request our Registrar, Professor Dr. N.B.H. Krishnan, Registrar of Jain Deemd University, to welcome Professor D.K. Madan, Secretary, Indian Economic Association, Punjabi University, Patiala, with a bouquet and memento. Thank you, sir. Dr. Raj Singh, Vice Chancellor at the Jain Deemd to be University, is professor, is an innovative academic leader, an administrator with proven capability in designing industry-relevant programs in collaboration with industry and academia. He's a strong proponent of a flexible education system in an inter and a transdisciplinary setting. With over 41 years of experience in education and administration, he has led some of the well-known universities and institutions in India. In his early years of his career, Professor Raj Singh has served in the Indian Air Force and worked as the founding head of the ICFI Business School, Delhi. He has conducted research and published in the field of finance and accounting, strategy and marketing. He graduated in mathematics and economics and took postgraduate qualifications in economics. He's a chartered financial analyst from the Institute of the Chartered Financial Analysts of India and a PhD from Maharshi Dayanand University, Rohtak. Sir, request you to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Mr. Harold. Dr. Deb Rai, who just finished the inaugural address, it was a pleasure listening to him after so many years and meeting him virtually after 26 years. Mr. Ramesh Chand, member Niti Aayog, Dr. Chandra Zoychand, Chairman, Jain Group of Institutions and Chancellor, Jain deemed to be University. Mr. V.K. Malhotra, former Member Secretary, ICSSR and Association President of Indian Economic Association. Mr. V.K. Madan, Secretary, Indian Economic Association. Other members and officials of Indian Economic Associations, all the officials from ministries and departments of central and state government, principal officers of Jain deemed to be University, deans, directors, heads of the departments. So V.K. Xavier, the coordinator for this conference, distinguished faculty colleagues, students of Jain deemed to be University, guests from media, delegates, scholars, researchers, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and privilege for me, on behalf of Jain deemed to be University and Indian Economic Association, to welcome you all to the 105th Annual Conference 2023 of the Association. Thank you, Indian Economic Association, for choosing us as the host, and Dr. Xavier, thanks for your efforts and efforts of all the faculty members led by Dr. Dinesh and Dr. Harold Patrick. I very well understand what efforts it takes to put together a conference of this magnitude. Friends, this conference is happening at a time when we have just become the 5th largest economy in the world, even though the per capita income remains quite low, and we have just entered the Amrit Kal. And as we know, the aim is to be a developed nation at the end of Amrit Kal, which is 25 years. Now, it may not happen on the day when the clock strikes a particular date, but it's a phenomenon, and we are well on our way to become one. Geopolitical equations are fast changing, and the epicenter is shifting towards the Indian subcontinent from the transatlantic, thanks to the Quad kind of initiatives. And we have seen recent conflict of Ukraine and Russia, which was also highlighted by Dr. Bipin Roy. India has shown good growth with strong fundamentals, even though possibility of economic recession and another wave of COVID are looming large. Economic decoupling, particularly with People's Republic of China, is being discussed in many quarters, but seems almost impossible due to many regions which demand a more symbiotic relationship, particularly when the world is looking at India's role during the presidency of G20. There are also issues of how to firewall against the economic onslaught of China. We have realized that economic development has direct relationship with the national security and international relations in general. Strategic sustainable development goals of United Nations and many national initiatives and missions are driving the economic changes. Also, these days there are issues of interest rates moving northwards due to inflationary concerns. Economic imperatives have put huge demand on the innovation system of the country, and universities are a significant part of the innovation system of the country, and therefore we expect it to deliver. These, and I'm sure many more issues, will be discussed over the next 3 days during the conference by the researchers, delegates, speakers. We have a galaxy of speakers, very, very eminent speakers have been lined up, thanks to Indian Economic Association and efforts of the CMS Business School of Jain deemed to be University. I welcome once again each one of you to have taken time out and be with us and spend time for 3 days. I'm sure at the end of 3 days, we all will stand enriched, develop new perspectives, and the teachers and scholars will walk away with many, many new areas of research which are aligned to global and national priorities. Thank you and welcome once again.
Thank you, sir, for the welcome address. Professor Dr. D.K. Madan, Professor Economics and Head, School of Social Sciences at Punjabi University, Patiala, has a postdoctoral experience of about 25 plus years in research, 22 years in teaching, and 11 years in academic administration. His PhD in economics was done from the Punjabi University, and his focus of research has been in development economics. He has completed at many conferences, is an author of books, a PhD scholar, and member of many national and international academic bodies. Sir, I request you to enlighten all of us about the Indian Economics Association and to deliver the opening remarks.
Thank you. Esteemed Professor Ramesh Chand, Conference President, Indian Economic Association. Professor V.K. Malhotra, Association President. Dr. Chinmay Roychand, Chancellor, Jain deemed to be University, Bangalore. Professor Raj Singh, Vice Chancellor, Jain deemed University. Dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, I welcome to all of you on the behalf of Indian Economic Association in our 105th annual conference at this Jain deemed University, Bangalore. We have more than 400 registrations for this conference. Almost delegates from 26 states are participating. And I am happy that the persons from most of the states and our executive committee members, they have come. Especially, I can name some few of them. Professor A. Ganga Reddy, Vice President from Tirupati. Professor Satish Verma from GND University, Amritsar. Professor E. Vijay Kumar from Manipur University in Nepal. And almost all the states have been cut under this conference. So here just I am happy to share that this Indian Economic Association, that is a very oldest body that was established in 1917, and it was founded by Professor C.J. Milton. And our first conference that was held in Kolkata in 1970. Now we have come on the 105th one, and I am happy to share that this in Bangalore, our last conference actually, that was held in 1983 and then in 1994. So this is the third conference in Bangalore that is being held here. So Karnataka is a very important state. Under this conference, we have 4 different themes, and in that one, I am very much thankful to Professor Vivek Dev Roy, Chairman, Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister of India. He today delivered a very important lecture, and he raised very important issues also. We also noted. Mainly, he raised about why there is a decline in the employment elasticity, why there is a decline in the worker participation And he also at the end gave importance to the economics because economics discipline raises so many policy issues for the economy. So that's why he told that thing, why that economics is very much important for all of us. So in this conference, our themes that included India's global economy and world economic order. Second theme is our Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, sectors of economy and performance and aspirations. Our third theme is economic technology developments and new initiatives. And the fourth one, very important session, that is the state economy of Karnataka. Just I share with you that Karnataka is a very important state now for the economic point of view. Because in 2021-22, Karnataka is the number one state in terms of the per capita income at current prices in India among all the major states. And Karnataka is also number one in the foreign direct investment inflow. So that's why this session on the state of Karnataka economy, that will be very much important for all the delegates to study that. IA has a very glorious past, I also like to say that. Because a large number of celebrities of the that was the president of our Indian Economic Association. And here I can name some few. Professor C.N. Vakil, he became our president in 1934. Professor D.R. Gadgil, he became our president in 1940. And Professor V.K.R.V. Rao, he was our president in 1949. Even D.T. Lakadwala, he was our president in 1964. And P.R. Brahmananda from Karnataka, he was our president in 1977. Today, after the inaugural session, Professor V.R. Panchmukhi will be chairing the session. And he was also our president in 1994. He was the founder director general of RIS and former chairman of the Indian Council of Social Science Research. So, IA has organized 104 annual conferences. Our last conference that was held in Bhopal and that was hosted by AIGTPA with the support of the government of Madhya Pradesh. And in that one, the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh that participated for 2 days in our conference. Today also, we invited the Honorable Chief Minister of Karnataka, but due to some preoccupation with other work, he could not come. But I am very much thankful that he was happy on this one to be organizing our conference. He might come, we are still confident that in our coming 2 days, he might join with us in this conference. So, in the last, I am very much thankful to all the delegates because I personally saw with the Honorable President of Indian Economic Association about the accommodation, food and so much other issues. And I am very much confident that all the delegates are comfortable. And for that one, I personally thankful to our Chancellor Jain Deemed University, Dr. Chin Godchen. Thank you very much, sir.
Before I introduce our Chancellor, who's
Very good morning. Very good morning to all of you. We are going to be here for 3 days. Need full energy from all of you in air-conditioned auditorium. Let me see, because you have to meet so many galaxy of speakers and understand them and take home the points. From every speaker, if you take 1 or 2 learnings at home, every one of you will be having more than at least 200 learnings for your lifetime to make it happen. So give a big round of applause to all the galaxy of speakers. And once again, let me see all the energy you have got. Very good morning to all of you. Now I want to come down. Very good morning. Thank you. In one voice, once again. Very good morning to all of you. Sir, Professor Ramesh Chand, sir, Member Niti Ayog, Delhi, Conference President, very smiling personality. I just met him half an hour before, and a lot of wisdom and a lot of thought processes, and maybe a thought leader. Thank you very much, sir, for gracing this occasion. Mr. Handsome, I called him, very charming personality, Dr. V.K. Malhotra. So let us have little lighter approach so that you feel energetic. Others 3 days, okay, 8 hours, 24 hours, what will happen? So many statements will come. So let us be very energetic about it. And I can see this young person, Dr. V.K. Malhotra, very young. Yesterday I was very impressed with him. The kind of connectivity, the 1,400 resource people across the country, outside the country, Nobel Prize people, and enabling them and bringing them together on a platform itself is an extraordinary nation development thing by Dr. V.K. Malhotra. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Madan, so handsome again. We have seen him talk, and so to the point and to the exact thought processes. Thank you, Dr. Madan, sir. Dr. Raj Singh, all my colleagues, all the galaxy of speakers. I have Dr. Charan Singh, who is one of the mentors of JGI Group. He's sitting there very silent, very great thinker. And all the luminaries who are here and the young generation who are going to be the future economist leaders of it. So my dear friends, I just want to be a little different. Because all the statistics you're all aware, because you read in the papers, India's GDP, 6% growth, and 2047 will be the top 3 economy, and other world countries are just at a 2%, 3% growth. This all are fine. It's very important. 800 crore population, 400 crore population is just below the poverty line, not even $1,500, bottom of the pyramid. So now the action points here for all of you, I understand in my 30 years of service or being at a young generation at the age of 14, I understood the entire literacy of India would have been at that time 10 to 12%, and today we talk about 30-35%, and we're looking at gross enrollment ratio at 50%. Honorable Prime Minister and the Food Commission member announced that 1 year 80 crore people will get the free food. Imagine that human development index 80 crore population in the whole world, which is below $1,500. If that can be capitalized through knowledge, through capacity building, I can imagine the growth of the world, what can happen. Now you know India was the richest in the world till 1,000 years. After 1100 years, please. Almost for 1,000 years, India was the richest on the planet. 36% of the world GDP was with India. From 1100 to 2000, it depleted and came down to 1%. So it is India shining again. Yes. India is shining again. By 2035, 2040, we should be the top 3 or top 2nd economy in the world. And that can happen, demographic dividends and the opportunities. One small example I'll give you. The concept of water. Buldana district in Maharashtra, where many farmers committed suicide. One of our organization, my elder brother Bharatiya Jain Sangha Shantilal Mutta, you would have heard about it. Niti Ayog is very much connected with Shantilal Ji Mutta, and you are aware of the water management issue, and you are also part of agriculture. And we are a team of volunteers of 10,000 people. And we saw farmers committing suicide there. And we went to Buldana district, they went to Buldana district and 100 villages, desilting and involving the farmers. Imagine after that 6 months of exercise, we could find 3% of agricultural income and their living standards improved by 3 times. So imagine 650 districts in India. So Bharatiya Jain Sangathan has taken 100 districts water conservation or desilting involving the farmers, stakeholders and the government. and we have more than 1 million volunteers, and all our 19,000 gurus of India, Jain community gurus, have joined together to build this water mission, because water is gold. If India has 20% of agriculture output, imagine if 30%, 35% of output will be the best giver to the whole world, whether it's fraud or the neighboring states, we can supply food to the world. So that is the power of the concept of mind. There is a power of wealth which India has got, which we have to tap internally. Economic theories are there. Too many, all the theories are available. Gross domestic product. You take 5 states in the country like Gujarat, Karnataka. You take Tamil Nadu. You take Uttar Pradesh. You take Maharashtra. We contribute 50% of GDP to the country. Only 5 states, but there are other 24 states left. UP will have 72,000 rupees of per capital income because it is 22 crore population, but overall India will have 2,30,000 rupees. But developed countries have more than almost 6 times to 8 times or 10 times. So India, why it is happening country? Because we have that human capital with us, and that human capital has to be capitalized, and that will happen only through solopreneurship. Now in Jain University, we have worked out myself, Dr. Raj Singh, my entire team, Dr. Dinesh and my entire team. 32 years I have been doing this business. I experimented when I was 16-year-old. When I used to go to the villages to market for the textile products, I could find a lot of salesmen getting 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees salary. And if you find the world population now, 3% of the people are holding 80% of the wealth of the world. 25% is a knowledge force and 72% is a skilled force. Now skilled force has to be tapped properly. With national education policy that is possible. So economic thinkers, economic leaders, Indian Economic Association have a very powerful role to play, not only in research, as Vivek Dekora said, with research, with action. So you are discovering, defining, developing and delivering. That is going to be the design thinking for the economic thinkers. I have only 10 minutes of the time, so I will have to suppress a lot of my points here. Otherwise, if I had 1 or 2 hours of session, definitely next time I will be able to give you with statistics. How I don't require any PowerPoint presentation or it. I've never opened Google website more than 3 times in my lifetime. But the concept of 800 crore population, how it can work magic. So I just picked up some few salesmen from villages, and I could see the big showrooms like this size. Investment of 1 or 2 crore rupees, rich are becoming richer, poorer are becoming poorer. Now you can see that 80 people or 90 people from the top Fortune 500 companies, they have 80% of the wealth of the world. Somewhere that wealth is not completely utilized. If the disparity is reduced, I used to pick up 4 or 5 salesmen from the showrooms and take 20 kilometers away from them, from that city, and in a village have a kiosk center or maybe a boutique center, and so that they start earning. So the wealth income starts increasing. Like this, I created 1,000 centers in just 3 months. Over a period of time, it became 30,000, it became 1 lakh. Now in India, I think 6,76,000 villages, the goods which has to be sold in villages at a 10% cost price, where you go to CBD district, you pay 10 times more. If you buy a Louis Vuitton bag at 10,000 rupees, the cost will be only 100 rupees. So the disparity in income has to reduce, and it is only the solopreneurship can make. So I have worked out this model. We have worked out in our Jain University. Every student out of Jain University has to go earning 5 to 7 lakh rupees a year, intrapreneurial through project-centric learning, so that they can manage their fees. Every teacher who leaves the organization after 60-65 years, they should have a $1 million bank balance. And they get a gratuity income of just 20 lakh rupees, underpaid, underemployed. 1/3 of the world's population is underemployed. 1/3 of the world population, see the capacity. So with this technology intervention, multinational 8,40,000 people have gone to manufacture in China, where India is the happening state now. Imagine if the manufacturing increases 50%. Imagine India is going to be the real face for the whole world. And that is possible by little small things, solopreneurship. So 30 crore entrepreneurs out of the 80 crore people, if the self-reliance we can make, Atmanirbhar, or we talk about the Honorable Prime Minister speaks about self-reliance, Atmanirbhar Bharat. I can just see within my locality there is a requirement. So I calculated very simple. My 20,000 students in university, 1 lakh students in villages. If I look at 1 lakh rupees of requirement itself is a $1 trillion business. So India is a $3.3 trillion economy. Only the solopreneurship Mohammed Yunus in Bangladesh can employ 35 million women. If there are people, if the jeans of Arvind Mills can sell at $8 per instead of $80 in the market, available $8 in the villages. Imagine if the companies, all the top companies of the world manufacturing, if they can look at the bottom of the pyramid, 400 crore population, 400 million population, if they are allowed to become ancillary and suppliers and producers, they will also be the buyers. Consumption also comes to them, and the cost comes down, and the world economy automatically comes up. So India has a great opportunity because of our school education. I have 2 2047, we see the senior age will be more, but now next 20 years, our youth is very young today. 40% of our youth is in 25 crore, 30 crore children are in the school, and 5 to 6 crores are there in higher education. If this can be tapped, channelized properly through solopreneurship model, which we have created, and every student who goes out of JN University will be a job provider, not a job seeker. So India has that intellectual capital. In the water district, one district, if we can, Yadgir district or Raichur district, we can create water diesel and farmers' income increases 3 times. Imagine the kind of produce we are going to have. You take Korean with the milk, or 2 cows with milk, it became an Amul product. So it is solopreneurship with ancillary support, and looking at the bottom of the tier 4 people who are the most required for the health, hygiene or food, or you can take housing, and this the well-being of them. This can happen only through solopreneurship, and it is a time that we look at the solopreneurship model. But I have all the models in place, but I just wanted to briefly just mention all the little points here and there, so that I can conclude my talk in 10 minutes, because you have a lot of other speakers speaking to all of you. Enough for today. When I get an opportunity sometime, and definitely we need a full day to even give all the statistical records, how it can work. Sir, Ramesh Chandji sir, 100 districts, this water, we have taken up volunteers across all the 11 states, and we ensure that the water desilting, because it doesn't require any extraordinary cost for that. But imagine the output is going to be so strong, from all consumerism to all the product development and to innovation. And imagine if they are empowered, the youth is empowered, because in our university set up education system, a student will not even study beyond 4 to 5 days a year, and though the attendance is 60%, because undergraduate students, they just require rote learning. If we put them on the market, this is where myself and my entire team, my vice chancellor team, we worked out that every student should be hands-on in action to understand and then come get moderated. So learning is from both the sides, so they become intrapreneurial in nature and entrepreneurial in nature. So JN University is looking for a model of 1 million to 2 million to 3 million solopreneurs through millet models. We have created a lot of millet products where we can come out of gluten, we can come out of, and Indianized products, whether it's Haldiram's, whether it is MTR, whether it is Orkla, whether it is our own millet products. Our students are producing all those things, and it can be the supplier to the whole world. So we should export to the whole world. Our export is just 400 billion, it can become 800 billion, but we can be the power of the economy, and that is mind, the future mind is the mind of the empires. The future is the empires of the mind. It's not the infrastructure is going to happen, but mental infrastructure is more important. I'm sure the Indian Economic Association of all the galaxy of speakers are going to speak on a lot of ideas and research and outputs and concepts what they developed. If that can be converted into action, I'm sure India in 10 years can become a $20 trillion economy, not for 2047, by 2035 we can become, and that is the human power. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure that I would still like to introduce our Chancellor, who is Chancellor of the JN Deemed to be University. He is also the chairman of 151 plus units and institutions, the JN Group of institutions. He has embarked on this journey to realize his vision with all of us to create millions of solopreneurs for equitable distribution of wealth in the society. He was recently invited by the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh to set up an entrepreneurial university in UP, an extremely passionate, tenacious person who believes in creating entrepreneurs, not only out of students, but also of teachers, and moving towards a university that will say job seekers do not apply for our programs. Our Chancellor and all students of JN University and the faculty and students of the JN Group of institutions, he has given us 10 sutras to success that we all know very well. Yeah. And his vision and passion for entrepreneurship, he's been awarded many awards. He was also given the doctorate by degree of Doctor of Literature honoris causa for his contribution to social work, education and philanthropy by the Bangalore University. Thank you, sir. Professor Ramesh Chand is the member of the Niti Aayog. is currently member Niti Aayog in the rank of status of the Union Minister of State. He has a PhD in agricultural economics from the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi, and a fellow of the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences and the Indian Society of Agricultural Economics. He's been involved in policy formulation for the agriculture sector for the past 2.5 decades. Prior to joining Niti Aayog, he was Director, National Institute of Agricultural Economics and Policy Research, New Delhi. He's the member of the Board of Trustees of the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center, Mexico, and Policy Advisory Council of the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, Australia. In the recent past, he has also held the position of member, 15th Finance Commission. Professor Ramesh Chand has worked in senior academic positions at ICAR National Professor, Professor and Head, Institute of Economic Growth, New Delhi, Delhi University, Professor at Punjab Agricultural University, Ludhiana. He has been a visiting professor at the University of Wollongong, New South Wales, Australia, at the Institute of Developing Economies, Chiba, Japan. He has been a consultant with international organizations such as FAO, UNDP, ESCAP, UNCTAD, Commonwealth, and the World Bank. He has authored 7 books and published more than 150 research papers in reputed journals, both national and international, on production, growth, development policy, farmers' issues, markets, and trade. He was presented with the Jawaharlal Nehru Award, the Rafi Ahmed Kidwai Award of the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, and the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Award by the Indian Economic Association. Sir, I now request the conference president, Professor Ramesh Chand, New Delhi, Niti Aayog, New Delhi, to share his thoughts and deliver the 105th conference presidential address.
Dr. Chandras Rajan, Chancellor of Jain University, Dr. Raj Singh, Vice Chancellor of Jain University, Professor Malhotra, President, Indian Economic Association, Dr. Madanji, Secretary, Indian Economic Association, Dr. Xavier, Local Organizing Secretary of this conference, Dr. Patrick, source persons, Office Bearer of Indian Economic Association, delegates, faculty and students of Jain University. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude to the Office Bearer of Indian Economic Association for reposing their faith in me to deliver presidential address for the IEA conference 4th time in a row. During the last 3 conferences, I spoke on something related to agriculture, but this time I decided to delve into the theme of employment, which has received a lot of attention of experts during the last couple of years. Also, lot of judgment based on conjectures, because hardcore data was not available. There was some gap in that. And also, I feel employment is the vehicle to make India a Viksit Bharat and achieve other major development goals like zero poverty, zero hunger through inclusive growth. We earlier heard Dr. Dev Rai, and he talked about too much dependence on government to think about future of the country. I think he in a way lamented the fact that much of the thinking related to long-term vision about India and Indian economy is not coming from academics or from the states. But I'm happy that private people, states may not be so much involved in policy making, but they are definitely involved in action. Especially civil society. The Chancellor shared with us a couple of examples. I have also seen a few of them, and they are really making a lot of difference on the ground. But when you aggregate the data, whether it is employment data, whether it is gross value added, you just find that the contribution of those kind of initiative generally is not visible. For that, someone need to do some case study and bring out how much contribution they are doing. And from the example which Chancellor Raychand has given and the kind of ideas he has, I could find that he is really bubbling with the ideas. And really, if those kind of ideas are taken to the ground, and they also relate to employment in some sense, then I think we will have a much better remunerative employment than what we give through MG Narega or in unorganized sectors. Anyway, that is another field. I hope we will get opportunity to listen to Dr. Raychand some other time to get his idea on employment. Now coming to this theme which I have chosen for my paper, I will not read this entire address which has been circulated to you. So rest assured that I will not keep you confined to all those 10-15 pages, 3,500 words. So I have prepared a abridged version which I will share with you, which mainly relate to some findings and conclusions related to labor force, employment, unemployment, and occupation distribution of labor and its inferences. As most of you come from economics background, so you will be knowing that there are two sources of data for employment. One is census and another was unemployment survey of NSSO. Census, as you know, is conducted after 10 years, so you can't afford to take important decisions, policy decisions, just waiting for 10 years data to come, and this time even it is delayed beyond that. And also after 11-12, we didn't have the next quinquennium round of employment and unemployment. But fortunately, from 17-18 onwards, Government of India took an important decision that they entrusted this responsibility to newly created, reorganized National Statistical Office in Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation to conduct employment survey every year. So we are now having this data on employment for 17-18, 18-19, 19-20 and 20-21 on an annual basis. And also you get the full data, rural, urban, national data, not with a gap of more than 7 to 8 months. So that is the kind of, I would say, efficiency in the statistical system that we discontinued with employment, unemployment survey by NSSO, but we replaced it with a efficient mechanism which is called PLFS, and many of you might be inspired or tempted to make use of this readily available data. Also, I have mainly looked at national level scenes, but when we go to country level situation, as you know that there is a lot of heterogeneity within our country. I think it is equally important to use state level data. So Dr. Malhotra said we have delegates from 20 states. So So I will request all of you that in respect of the state on which you are working, just look at this PLFS data and what kind of employment situation is there and how that is related to poverty, welfare of people, income of people. You must go into that. And if we keep looking only at aggregate data, it may mask much of the hard and harsh state level reality. Like at national level, we may find that women participation rate is say 22%. But when you go to states, you will find that the state which is very poor in this country, the women work participation rate is only less than 7%. It is 6.5%. So we need to have state-specific understanding of these employment issues and then come with, I would say, state-specific solutions to these problems. Then secondly, I would say that concept is also very important. If you look at PLFS data or before that employment, unemployment data, you will find that 2-3 type of indicators are used. One is that employment based on usual status, then employment based on current weekly status or current daily status also. So when we use the employment based on usual status, which is sum of principal status and subsidiary status, so it generally captures the employment which is for longer duration, that what is the status of employment, which is say for more than 6 months. But when you go to current weekly status, it just look at employment of short-term nature and current employment. It is possible that somebody get work for 6 months, but he or she may not get work most of the time when want to work. So this is how when you conduct the weekly estimate, you come to know what is happening to the current employment. So it is important that we look at the trend and estimate based on both the indicators and both have their interpretation. But as a objective researcher, not to pick that one which suit us in proving particular kind of conclusions. I think that is where the danger lies. And that is where sometimes economists also get bad name, that they pick up the data which suit their thinking and based on that they arrive at conclusion. And there is evidence, ample evidence of that based on this PLFS employment data, that PLFS data, again you find it is available on usual status, annual basis and quarterly basis. So sometime quarterly data for 2 quarters will show you some adverse trend, which may not be there in the annual data, because there are 4 quarters which make a year. 2 quarters may be very good, 2 quarters are very bad. So annual data will be something in between. So if we pick up only that bad data or only good data to give say brownie point to this, I feel that becomes biased. That has its own interpretation, but as a researcher, we should be mindful of these kind of nuances of data, that if we use particular kind of data, what kind of implication is there. But still I feel that annual data capture employment situation better than quarterly data. Then further, the national level data capture employment situation better than looking only at urban data. So these are some of the nuances that when we look at data, let us not blow up some conclusion which follows from a specific type of data. As an unbiased researcher, we just make use of appropriate data and present both the sides, what is the flip side, what is the positive side, and what is the overall pictures, and not taking the position that if employment is declining, we make noise about unemployment, and if employment increases, then we say, no, it is because of distress people are working, otherwise they don't want to work. So we should be interpreting the estimates in an unbiased manner. So as a policy person, in the presidential address, I have tried to address 4 major questions related to unemployment. One is there a decline in worker to population ratio in recent years? This is very important, that whether worker to population ratio is declining. Also, what is happening to labor force in the population? Second question is unemployment in the country some experts and media repeatedly, or it is happening otherwise? Third is, are women withdrawing from workforce? Fourth is there deterioration in the overall employment scenario in the country? So I chose these questions because you find that lot of media stories that if in one quarter some negative picture come, we look at that, and next quarter the positive picture come, we don't look at that. Last week you might have read that CMI data, which they produce on monthly basis, of course it has its own good point and its own limitations. So it says that during last 5 months, in the last 6-7 months, in the 3-4 month employment is increasing, but in the 3-4 month employment is decreasing. And in the last month, that is latest month, last month employment declined. So all TV debate on this, employment in this country has declined in November. Not looking at that month before that, it was increasing. So we should be looking at what is happening to average of 1 year. We have data till November, if we take calendar years. So these are, I just want to raise with you that we have to be very unbiased and very guided by the statistical criteria in picking up the estimate and in picking up the period. Another caution, in case you want to use PLS-FS data for your research, as you know that employment depends upon economic activity, they are very closely related. Therefore, we have to see that the period of measurement of economic activity and employment are the same, that they correspond to it. But PLFS data is from July to June, it corresponds to agriculture year, it does not correspond to financial year. Whereas financial data, if we have to look at what is happening to national income, that start from 1st April and goes up to 31st March. But PLFS data start from 1st July and goes up to 30th June next year. Therefore, we need to construct the data on growth of GVA if we want to relate economic activity to employment, and then bring the similar reference period for both PLFS as well as GLVA, which means that in PLFS you do not include the data of first quarter, you include the data of first quarter of next year. So then there is a correspondence that you are comparing employment of the same period with economic activity of the same period. And also in year 1920 and in year 2021, there was COVID. Not throughout the period, that there were some period of severe COVID outbreak, lot of disruption of economic activities. But 2021, some period it became very serious, but some period it was normal. And also, once the economic activity dipped in 1920, 2021 situation will not appear that bad because the base with which you are comparing 1920 is already bad. So those kind of situations also are reflected when we look at the employment data. So we need to read it a bit carefully. So now I come to 4-5 indicators on which I have produced tables in the address which has now been circulated to you. I will just quickly now formally read the main finding and some of the conclusion. So I start from labor force participation rate. I hope this difference between labor force and workforce is clear to you, because labor force means that that people who are available for work, who want to go for work, but all of them may not get the work. Some of them may not get the work, so they are unemployed. So when you deduct the number of persons who are unemployed for various reasons from number of people who are willing to do some work, you get workforce. So this is the difference between workforce and labor force. Both have again their own interpretation. PLFS data show that size of labor force in the country has shown increase in each year since 2017-18 based on both usual status and current weekly status. Usual status criteria shows increase in labor force from 485 million to 563 million during the 4 PLFS year. That is an increase of 16.15% in just 3 years, as against increase in population of less than 5%. So labor force increase is more than 3 times, but the increase in population, which clearly shows the demographic dividend of India is not only existing, that India is enjoying demographic dividend. During PLFS years, it has increased, and it is likely to increase for some more years before, as Professor Dev Roy brought out, by 2030 or 35, that advantage may not be available, but so far that demographic dividend advantage is available to India, and demographic dividend create the possibilities that a country can attain very high level of growth. But if that translation is possible only if that demography is provided suitable opportunities. Otherwise, we have also seen in some countries demographic dividend end up with a demographic disaster also. If people are not getting employment, they come on road, they create all sort of problem. At the aggregate level, rural labor force constitutes 71% of total labor force in 1920, which increased to 73% during 2020-21. Again, reason is COVID, that during the COVID period, there was very serious disruption in economic activities in urban area. Many people from urban area moved back to rural areas. So that's why you find that during this PLFS year, the share of rural labor force in total labor force of country increased. Otherwise, when a country is urbanizing, Professor Kundu can explain all these things better than me. He has so much understanding and he has written so much on these kind of things. Otherwise, when as India is urbanizing, the share of rural labor force should decline. But it is attributable to that COVID phenomena, that share of rural labor during PLFS years, we find that there is an increase in this. It is interesting to point out that during COVID year 2021, size of labor force in rural area increased by 8%, whereas it shrunk by 3% in urban areas. The reason I have already explained to you. Now coming to male and female labor, the share of female labor in the total labor force increased from 23% to 29% between 2018 and 2021, a very big increase. Yes, we need to find out how it is possible and in which sector it is happening. I have dealt with those kind of things in my paper. The increase in female labor force was found much higher than increase in male labor force in all the year of PLFS data. Between rural and urban areas, female labor force showed much higher percent increase in rural area compared to urban area. And again, you can see that maybe more women in urban area are going for education, for higher education. So that could also explain, but then you need to corroborate it with the data on education. These changes in labor force brought about significant change in labor force participation rate, which increased from 37% in 17-18 to 40% in 19-20 and 21.6% during PLFS year 2021. This is all based on usual status. Generally, I will be speaking on usual status unless I say that this referred to current weekly status. So these were changes in the labor force. Now I come to worker to population ratio. As already mentioned, some person willing to undertake work either may not be getting any work or getting the work, not getting the work of their choice and are thus unemployed. The usual status shows steady increase in the number of workers in the country each year after 2017-18. But if this increase in worker is more than labor force, then there will be decline in unemployment. If this is less than increase in workforce, then there will be increase in unemployment. The increase in workforce was 2.7% in 18, 9% in 19-20, 5.3% in the year 2020-21. It may appear strange that number of workers shows sizable increase despite a big squeeze in economic activity in the country during PLFS year 2019-20. An explanation for this is that many household members who were not in labor force were forced to join unpaid work in family enterprises to counter the adverse effect of COVID on household earnings. So again, you see the household dynamic, that it is not what we simply believe that COVID आया और लोगों को काम मिलना बंद हो गया. People find their own mechanism to adapt to situation. Like I just found that number of youth which a year before COVID was showing a decline in agriculture, during COVID the number of youth suddenly increased in agriculture. So this is the human adaptation mechanism, that if the situation becomes favorable, you behave in a particular way, you then look for a job of your choice, as was happening in India before COVID. But if situation turns out to be unfavorable, the human behavior and adaptation turns out to be totally different. So this is how you find that COVID again provide very interesting phenomena, that how during a distress period the adjustment in the employment happened in the country, and how differently they were for male and female, and how different they were for rural and urban areas. While rural workforce showed sizable increase each year, urban workforce showed a decline of 2.8% in year 2021. Number of rural workers increased by more than 32 million each year during 1920 and 2021. The increase was 5.3 million during 18-19. So throughout it has increased, but before COVID the increase was small. After COVID, because of this pressure of COVID, since earnings were less, more people have to come into workforce. So it is counter to what people will perceive, that because of COVID people are not getting job. They may not be getting the job, but they were doing work. More people were doing work during COVID period than before COVID period. So what I want to say is, but one of my mentors used to say that facts can be stranger than fiction. But you imagine people will do, but they actually do. They can be really totally different, and this is what is brought about by the workforce data. Job creation in urban area was higher than the rural area during pre-COVID years. So that workforce moving to urban areas. Number of workers show increase in urban area in the first phase of COVID. However, prolonging of COVID hurt urban employment, and many urban workers even moved out to rural area during 2021, resulting in decline in the number of urban workers in that year. PLFS data shows rising feminization of rural and total workforce in the country. Despite this, female comprise only 30% of total workforce in the country and 23% in urban areas. This shows that male dominance in workforce is continuing, though it is weakening, and it has particularly weakened during COVID period. I can give credit to women that when it comes to distress, probably women volunteer more than men to look after economic interest of household. This is the interpretation I gave to why there is higher increase in the number of women workers compared to men workers during that COVID period. This is important, I want to just read it. An explanation for this is that many household members who were not in workforce were forced to join unpaid work in family enterprises to counter the adverse effect of COVID on household earning. So that was the kind of situation. The number of workers increased at faster rate than population and labor force. This led to increase in worker to population ratio, which increased from 35% to 41% in rural and 34% to 36% in urban area during 4 PLFS years. Of a female population of 1,000 in 17-18, only 165 were in workforce. You see how much low workforce, that women mainly in household activity, which is not, I'm not justifying, which is not unfortunately considered as economic activity. This ratio increased to 218 in 1920 and 242 in 2021. Despite this progress, the worker to population ratio of women in the country remained less than half the worker to population for men. So that is the disparity still, that though the work participation rate of women is increasing, but still in the total population, the proportion of women in workforce is half compared to what is the proportion of men in workforce. Now I come to statistic on unemployment. During 17-18, 29 million persons in the labor force of the country remained without job for major part of the year. That is based on usual status. Their number declined to 26 million in 1920 and further to 24.4 million, which was second COVID year. What is remarkable is that unemployment declined despite big increase in new entrant into labor force, which was 83.5 million. So increase in workforce across, what was the increase in the labor force during these 4 years? The unemployment rate dropped from 6% during 17-18 to 5.84% during 18-19, 4.84% in 1920 and 4.3% in 2020-21. The unemployment rate in rural area was much lower than urban area. Similarly, the unemployment rate among rural female was lower than rural male, while the opposite hold true in urban area. The rate of unemployment at country level shows a significant decline every year according to current weekly status also. Whereas you see most of the paper, particularly by my friend Mehrotra, he will show in every paper that unemployment is increasing by picking up quarterly data only for urban population. And since quarterly data doesn't come for rural areas, so it suits you that this is the data which is available to you. So annual data totally refute this assertion of increase in unemployment. Yes, there are issues related to quality of employment, what kind of employment is available. But there is certainly no increase in unemployment. Rather, on the contrary, there is a sharp decline in the rate of unemployment in all 4 years since 17-18. Sectoral distribution of workforce. Okay. I also dealt with sectoral distribution of workforce. There mainly I wanted to test 2-3 hypotheses. One is the hypothesis of another very reputed economist, my friend Sucha Singh Gill of Punjabi University, who claim that there is deep agentization of agriculture, that farmers are becoming landless laborers. If you look at the status in terms of self-employed worker in agriculture vis-a-vis labor in agriculture, you find a big increase in the number of cultivators and a very small increase in agriculture laborers. So it does not come out from the data if any sort of deep agentization is happening. Rather, many people who were earlier agriculture laborers danger, no young person is willing to work in agriculture. That kind of trend doesn't come from the data. So, respecting the time, I will just go to the last, including para. The analysis of data on employment shows that there is improvement in overall employment situation in the country over the last 4 years, except some COVID-related short-term distresses. However, there is no room for complacence. We need to give strong push to generate work opportunities in non-agriculture activity and also create skill-oriented blue-collar job within agriculture. No country has become prosperous if work participation rate of women remain low and far behind men. This aspect will require special attention in future. Thanks for your indulgence. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for delivering the conference presidential address. Professor V.K. Malhotra, who's recently been appointed as chairman and Food Commission of Madhya Pradesh. He served as member secretary of the Indian Council of Social Science Research, Government of India. Sir, we request you to deliver the 105th Association President Address.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick. In the very august presence of Professor Ramesh Chand, the Chancellor of this university and the host of 105th IEA conference, Dr. Chenraj Roychand, Professor Raj Singh, the Vice Chancellor of this university, Professor Javier, faculty, students, staff of CMS Business School, very energetic, the Secretary of IEA, Professor D.K. Madan, fellow faculty members, scholars, and media persons. It's really an honor and privilege for me to stand here because whatever I am is largely made by you people. Professor Dev Roy very rightly raised the important concerns before the nation. Each one of us needs to be complimented on this occasion that we have completed 75 years of India's independence. And we are looking ahead at next 25 years. What is being termed as Amrit Kal, we essentially need to make it an Amrit Kal for the nation. And it is in this light that Professor Dev Roy raised important questions related to state of affairs, policy issues, and maybe the questions that need to be answered by top-class research in coming days. And there were some of the questions which research must have answered prior to they needed to be raised at this platform. But I'm sure with these kinds of learnings, raising of issues, underlining of issues, we'll be in a position to serve the nation through new learnings, new methods of teachings, and new researches, and more importantly, raising or focusing over the policy researches. This conference has top class 30 to 40 economists of the country. They have excelled in different areas of their expertise itself. I'm very, very happy to see that Professor Ramesh Shah, who is known to be one of the top class agriculture economists, not only in India, but all over the world, has ventured into a new area of labor force and employment-like issues, and how statistics need to be looked at, and how statistical jugglery at times may definitely lead us to different kind of findings or maybe solution towards things. I have several names to take from this gathering, in fact. And each name that I intend to take will make me think in terms of, I perhaps missed a still more important name in addressing people. I'm sure that since we are left with very little time, we needed to break for tea. Just few remarks for the delegates. IEA is known for sincerity.
Dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. Season's greetings to each one of you. On behalf of the CMS Business School, JNTMT University, the hosting institution of the 105th Annual Conference of Indian Economic Association, I, the local organizing secretary, sincerely thank each one of you for the overwhelming response given to this conference. 362 delegates have registered. 40 interested persons have accompanied them to listen to this conference. We have 40 most dignified resource persons in the country with us physically to present, brainstorm on contemporary topics of the discipline. This is very important to rethink, to restore the world economic order. Great disruption after the Great Depression of 1930s created immense damages to all regions, countries, and the world at large. Due to the pandemic and the war, the loss of lives and livelihood is huge. Besides, the geopolitical tensions, unemployment, and inflation have surged to a level unprecedented that history has not seen the last 40 years. Ladies and gentlemen, since the time the MOU was signed with the IEA and CMS Business School, JNTMT University, meticulous planning preparations have been going on to set this conference to a global benchmark level. An army of dedicated volunteers of the staff and students of CMS Business School have been put into task to fulfill that. This conference will be a great academic success. On behalf of the CMS Business School and the Indian Economic Association, I thank all the dignitaries who have graced this occasion physically. We are grateful for the presence of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Raj Singh. We thank Dr. Madan, the Secretary of IEA, for his opening remarks. Sir, we acknowledge your presence for the last 3 days in guiding us in the way the IEA conference should be. We thank Professor Bibek Debroy, the Chairman of the Economic Advisory Council to Prime Minister of India, for delivering the inaugural address. We thank Dr. Chandraj Roychand, the Chancellor of JNTMT University, who is the patron of this conference. Sir, your achievements are great indeed to make higher education in India on par with the aspirations of the National Education Policy 2020. We
Jagat